I think the whole thing is art beyond words, because you can't find the words to explain something to somebody else that meant so much to you. And over time, those meanings and those things compound. So sport's cute, but I like to do art. And I really think because of that, you could be put into, oh yeah, well, you're an artist. And I'll kick back on that saying, I think we're all artists. And I've practiced art a lot. And I've also practiced surfing a lot. And therefore I see the similarity. Good art isn't what it looks like, but how it makes you feel.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast, the podcast that helps lifelong surfers to catch more waves, surf with more speed, style, grace, and to gain wisdom and confidence in the water. I am your host, Michael Frampton, and today it's all about art. Is surfing an art or a sport? It's an age-old question. And you just heard a couple of quotes from Donald Brink, who weighs in on this topic in depth. Awesome conversation. And just before we get into that conversation, I just want to announce I have released the Surf Mastery mini course. It is a concise summary of everything that has been learnt throughout the process of doing this podcast, improving my own surfing, and working as a surf coach. And it's focused in on what happens in between when the surfboard is under your arm and when the surfboard is under your feet. So that includes your perspectives and your philosophy on surfing, the way that you read the ocean, the water and waves, the way you paddle in, the way you pop up. Anyway, to find out more, go to surfmastery.com and check that out. But without further ado, is surfing an art or a sport? Let's get into it with Donald Brink. You mentioned them being art, which segues us into what I wanted to talk about, which was, is surfing an art or a sport, or both? Now, I'll tease you a little bit with some of my thoughts, and then we'll get you to weigh in. So the Oxford Dictionary defines a sport as senses relating to play, pleasure, or entertainment. Some other definitions are diversion, entertainment, fun, frequently with modifying adjective, activity that you do for pleasure and that needs physical effort or skill, usually done in a special area and according to fixed rules. So surfing definitely fits within most of that definition, maybe not fixed rules. Of course, if it's competition, it definitely does. And those are sort of some modern dictionary definitions of sport. And the etymology actually hasn't changed much in the origin of the word. I will add, I think those that have a background where their sporting youth was competitive, you would immediately think that sport was competitive as well. And so obviously surfing fits that, but only in a small niche of 100 people, sort of, or a handful of competitive surfers in the world. Then art, which definitely has some looser definitions, but the dictionary may explain art is in the use of the imagination to express ideas or feelings. I think that can definitely explain surfing for a lot of us. The expression of ideas and emotions through a physical medium, often with the intent to evoke a worthwhile experience. Definitely, surfing fits that. Something that is created with imagination and skill, and that is beautiful or that expresses important ideas or feelings. Again, another definition of art, which I think surfing, for me at least, fits in there. The etymology of art, basically put, a skill as a result of learning or practice. Obviously, how art thou? Art has been used in other ways, which sort of comes back to one's identity as well, which I think is a cool little nuance there, because obviously a lot of us as surfers, we identify as surfers. It's not just something we do. So there's a little bit of a history of the two words, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, Donald.
Those definitions definitely have an overlap. And I think I would have, if you asked me to choose one, I would choose art. And I think that that's changed over time, and my confidence in I want to be rather just choose one so that so obviously it's both, but I would say it's art, and the reason I'm more adamant on that now is because that's changed over time. Because even my work, people often ask like, "Oh, these boards are such art," and I'm like, "No." It's like they're beautiful. They're like, what's like? Well, I want to hang it on the wall. It's like, no, just go surf. It's like I do paint pictures as well, and you're like, that's art. You hang that on the wall. You're not gonna surf that. And then you start to realize either it's all art or none of it is. And and that's a brave statement, and it's not to be cute. And therefore, to me, surfing is art because it has such depth and value and meaning to yourself and the inspirations and the things that come along with the surfing life. To me, are sometimes indescribable. And that's what art is. It's really hard to quantify exactly which brushstroke meant that thing come together, which part of the light in a photograph conveyed that emotion. And you don't want to start to study it in such depth that it kills the bird to find the song that then vanishes. So you start to see these metaphors trip on themselves. And I prefer if there's art in everything to be endlessly fascinated by art, then this is art and that isn't. Because those binary thoughts to me just make it, they put endpoints on potential new horizons or potential dreams. And that's happened to me. Like a lot of board design, not a lot, but from time to time, there's been waves I've dreamt about, or boards that I've dreamt about, or boards that I've dreamt on waves about. And those are treasured things. And I'll wrap this thought up with this. I got to meet Phil Edwards a few months ago. I've seen him before. I'd never met him before. And yeah, I was endlessly, obviously inspired and fascinated by his legacy to surfing. And a mutual friend wanted to bring him by my shop and introduce us. And I was like, such an honor, right? Like getting to meet Phil Edwards. And he came down to the shop. He was such a lovely man. We got on like a house on fire. It was great. We were talking boats and design and all kinds of things. And I one of the reasons I was so interested in him is because he stopped surfing years ago. He just stopped surfing, and I was like, I'm always like, man, how do you just stop surfing? That's just strange to me, right? And I wasn't sure how to ask that because I wasn't conducting an interview. I wasn't sure it was even my place or space to ask. So I asked him flat out. I was like, I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I was like, Phil, do you miss surfing? And it was about as much energy in the way I said it then as it was when I just said it to you now. Like, Phil, do you miss surfing? And he looked at me and he didn't hesitate much at all. He said, you know, I have dreams about it and it's still so vivid. It's amazing. And he shared one or two things and we moved on. And I was like, wow, it was as though he's still surfing. And it left me more confused and even more interested because I was like, man, imagine the data points that I'm getting from my surf just yesterday and potentially that I could get from today's surf could be things storing up inside which you would hate to meter or measure, but they're in you. And I think they come out of one without being governed or policed, and therefore they're precious. And so I want to respect them. And that's how art feels to me. I've been working on some mixed media, like challenging pieces, really like pushing myself as a creative being. And I say that because I can feel the angst and I can phone this in and just make it look pretty, or I can try and find new ground. And when you do, stuff comes out from within that halfway through you get these break points, and they're like, wow, I I didn't know I could do that. And it's not that you're impressing yourself. You just can't believe that you were able to be part of this dance of something that came to life really through you, not from you. And I'll challenge people to compare this to what they've felt in their own surfing. You're out there sometimes, and maybe it's even when the waves are good, and then you take off on this little wave. My point is, sometimes the most rewarding sensations come from the most surprising little nuanced events or the most unlikely timing of things. And there's just so much input on the senses. It's such a sensory activity. In fact, you would say it's sensational. And that used to really bug me, that that's all surfing was. The whole thing's just sensational. And I was challenging myself with, or am I trying to ascribe too much to what surfing is? Am I trying to add too much value to it because I'm so either ridiculously into it, or am I trying to put meaning to something that really doesn't have meaning and therefore make it okay? And no, I love it. I'm so grateful for it. I think it's entirely creative if you want it to be. And I think the whole thing is art beyond words, because you can't find the words to explain something to somebody else that meant so much to you. And over time, those meanings and those things compound. So sport's cute, but I like to do art. And I really think because of that, you could be put into, oh yeah, well, you're an artist. And I'll kick back on that saying, I think we're all artists. And I've practiced art a lot. And I've also practiced surfing a lot. And therefore I see the similarities. And, I think it's the act of surfing. It really needs to be put together as the adjective and the noun, I guess. Now I'm talking out of turn, but the practice of surfing is something I like to say sometimes audibly. It's like, I'm going to practice surfing today. And it changes the energy in the approach. Or the act of surfing lifestyle, the surfing lifestyle, or the surfing life. These are words you read on book covers, but I think they're really well thought out. So I don't mind how surfing's explained. I just don't like to have endpoints within my own understanding of it, because it keeps showing itself to be bigger and more beautiful and deeper, with a bigger and broader community of things indescribable for all points of view. And for me, that's important, and I'm grateful to be part of that. But that's more of a gallery setting than a stadium. And
Yeah.
both are cute, and both are necessary. But I would prefer to be at the gallery.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. I love that. And the more I think about it and the more I analyze it, it actually makes me realize that surfing more and more is an art and not a sport. It is a sport as well. Don't get me wrong. If you go by the
Sure.
definitions in air quotes, and I think for a lot of people, it is only a sport because it's just something they do for a little bit of recreation here and there. And then
Right.
obviously you've got the highly competitive people who treat it as a competitive sport. But for most of us, and I'd say everyone listening to this show, it is an art for
Mm.
sure. And I
But
think,
I'm not against sport. And that's where I think this could be like, it's like, are you for sport or are you for art? And it sounds like we're both for both. But I love the concept of sport. I just I just think if I had to shake, that's why I'm going to choose one lane to honor that. So it's like, I think it's more art than sport. Yeah. And the other
yes,
thing too is that it's so personal, and it's like there's not many other sports which have such a closed feedback loop within just oneself. Like a team sport would naturally be your team player. When you enter the ocean, you might be amongst people, but you're really playing different games on the same court. It's you and the ocean and your thoughts, but the school is within your own life, and you take away what I call stoke, or those little joyous moments and frustrating ones too. So there's wins and losses, but they're kept within one's own heart.
mm,
and, and therefore it's hard to show me another sport where that happens so consistently at choice.
yeah, no, surfing is closer to music than it is tennis.
Like I like the concept. What I do like about parameters is they produce really good art. If somebody commissions you to do a piece and you have to, and there's a couple of confines or a narrative script or whatever, it really helps give a narrative guideline, and I think it helps produce good art, putting
Agreed.
some confines. And so that's why surfing competition is actually really interesting, just to put a clock against the heat. You're surfing against the clock. They're all really good. So I do think, therefore, you could even argue that's why the art's so good, because
Well,
now you put confines.
that's the irony of it all. You look at a competitive surfer, the ones that win, they're the best artists. I think the only competition
Yeah,
in competitive surfing is like the strategy stuff, not the surfing itself. It's the heat
right.
strategy and all that other BS. But once you're on a wave, even John surfing a wave in a competition is art. And that's why he's so good, because he is an artist. He's dancing with the wave.
I agree. And so therefore it's like, yeah, those confines produced better art. So therefore it's art. But back to my point is, I can't think of another sport where you're selecting to be so individualistic in your pursuits over and over. Because people often look at surfing at first glance, it seems like quite a selfish activity, and I'm sure it can be. I mean, it certainly can be. But when you realize, if you could cultivate your fascination for the sea, it could be, you could be a better husband, father, teacher, partner by your not surfing too much and also not surfing too little, right? It's pretty simple. So once you balance that fascination, that gets very, very powerful. And I don't see, or at least I can't think of another sport, because I often think, man, what if I didn't get to surf, or I couldn't surf anymore? Like, what would I switch this out for? And it ends in tears every time. I'm like, I've gotten so much out of surfing. And then you're like, man, am I so shallow that I had so much on this? And I'm sure I'll find something or get really busy doing other things. But I can't, I can't imagine replacing it. And I think you'd have to replace it with many things
Yeah.
to fill the complexity of and that's why it's unique. That's what I love about it. It's so complex, like these sensual downloads that you go and get, and these humbling experiences. Like being scared in the ocean is something that I do not take lightly. I mean, scared for your life at times, and that is such a gift to choose to do, because many people don't get scared by choice often at all. And so to do that at will, the learnings that you once again take away for yourself, and you return to your tribe or your family or your place, your neighborhood, your community, you return as a different person.
Mm,
That's a beautiful thing, you know?
yeah. Maybe martial arts encompasses some of the things in surfing. And that way it's risky. You're playing with the power of something external.
Mm.
You have to be very skillful and relaxed in order to do it well.
Yeah, but I think the difference, I like that. So I'm not trying to be right here. I think the difference here is that you'll never overcome or impose your will on the ocean. Doesn't matter how frustrated you get at the wave, it's always going to, it's the ocean's just so big. It would be like trying to fight the mountain. So in martial arts, you'll generally spar with another human. So there's, within your mind, there's this concept of they won today. Whereas when you surf, the sea will always win. You're not stopping the tide. It'll come up and down twice a day. That's what it does.
Mm,
And that's where the humility comes. It's like, you can't win. You don't go to the ocean to win. You go to the ocean to be part at best. Yeah. So well, I've thought about this too much, it sounds like, but that's why I'm like, no, the other sports that I was always end up in these little cul-de-sacs. I'm like, no, it's
yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why I think surfing is more of an art. You're connecting with nature. It's borderline a religious experience. It's challenging. It's scary. It's fun. It's playful. It's artistic. It's creative.
Mm,
And those restrictions that if you're commissioned to do a painting, has certain restrictions. Well, same with surfing. The waves are the way they are. The board you chose to ride that day is the way it is.
mm,
The crowd is only going to gift you certain waves. Like, there are so many restrictions every time you go surfing, and if you can play the hand you're dealt, you
right.
have the opportunity to dance with the wave however you want to. and
As
create
long as you're in the
art,
right spot,
express
doing the
yourself.
right thing.
Yeah,
Exactly, and not getting in anyone's way.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. That's I think about these things when you're trying to understand, like, what a governing body or a sport entity is doing right or wrong within a surf space. See how well I worded that? But like the judgment on how to run a surf competition is, it's endless. But I'm always wondering, is like it's almost because it's not a sport, and everyone wants it to be a sport because they're getting paid dollars to win, right, or dollars to be endorsed. But the best parts that we love about surfing, like if there were no competitions, you would land up with what we'd have left with would be amazing surf films and people enjoying the ocean every day. So if you think about the best parts, and this is just me talking now, but when I think about, I follow all the tour and everything, and some of the best parts are the fact that it's almost like a live version of a surf movie, and so it's still it still is what we always will want and need and enjoy, but it doesn't necessarily make it a sport. It's just there's an overlap of the things that it will always be. It's just it's really interesting, and I do think it helps surfing, and it makes surfing more understandable and more broad. And yet, all of these things really don't matter because if you don't like surfing, then it doesn't matter because it's those who do will cherish it and hopefully be responsible with it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think you have to. I'm talking in the wrong space, yeah. But
no, I think
yeah,
that there's an interesting irony there because even those who treat surfing like a sport to the extreme, the professional surfer in a competition, when they're actually doing the act of surfing, it is an art form. The same way that an Olympic gymnast is judged. The ones who do it the smoothest and the most beautiful and turn the sport of gymnastics into an art form, those are the ones that win.
mm, yeah, it's it's neat to have winners. It's we like winning. It's funny. I was thinking about this just being on the Gold Coast at Burley, and if you had to suspend the competition and just have a group consensus of who surfed the point the best over 2 weeks, I think you'd actually land up with similar winners, right? There'd be some incredible standout locals watching them understand that wave and surf it so well. But my point is, good surfing is inspirational. Like watching somebody put a performance, and you could call it a performance together. It's so just it's amazing, and the depth and detail and nuance is to us endlessly fascinating. But also to a layman, somebody walking up the point, watching a competent surfer put a ride together is it's quite obvious, right? So like having to put clocks and jerseys and heats and buoys in place just to find that is almost hilarious. Like at the end of the day, the ocean knows, we know, and yet none of it matters. And yes, it's still interesting, but those. Here's my point. Those days when you went surfing and you realized you were so in tune and you kind of surfed beyond what you thought you could, and you didn't win anything, and it didn't matter.
Mm.
That is quite a beautiful thing. I think very rarely we've seen somebody do that in a final, and that would be the highest level of sport, right? To see somebody just lose themselves in a performance. And yet, from time to time, I'm sure that happens. But my point is, like, if you're not that person, and it really doesn't matter to you. So the fact that you can level up and go beyond yourself within these within a show and find new levels and heights and connections and have a dance put together on a wave, let alone a bunch of waves, and put a session together. Like, are we constantly at sport with ourselves then, is the question.
Hmm. And in terms of winning, yeah, because like you described that the moment where you surfed better than you had, you
Oh,
won.
yeah.
You won against yourself yesterday, right? So
Hundred percent.
you became a better artist, let's say. And I think the competition surfer, uh, I think when a competition surfer wins, they the feeling is similar in a way because they know, oh man, I surfed that wave beautifully, probably
Right.
because of the pressure. Pressure makes made a diamond in that case. And not only did
Right.
I win the thrill of the wave, I won some money, which gives me the opportunity to surf this amazing the next amazing wave next year with only two people in the water and create more art. And
Right.
so uh, I think, yeah, winning a surf competition. I mean, look at Kelly Slater. He just kept on doing it. I don't think he didn't need the money. He didn't necessarily need any more trophies. I think he just wanted to surf pipeline with two other people in the water again.
Yeah, well played. I mean, that's the game of life then, not the game of surfing. It's like, oh, you get to jump through these hoops and you get these are the little perks, it's quite brilliant. I mean, you do that in any decision in life. You play the game according to your lifestyle you're looking for. So it's back to lifestyle now. And therefore that's quite a creative composition of how to spend your days or your best cardiovascular years, let alone your joints. Um, and for me, I choose surfing, and that shows itself from time to time in conversations where, like, I have foil boarded one time, and it was incredible, but I just chose to not invest in spending that much time getting good at something else, which I know I'm going to love because I know life's short and I want to be so deep in what I'm doing that I don't know if it's wrong or right, but for me, I was like, I'm going to stay purely focused in this lane because it helps me understand my work. And I'm not judging anyone being divided in interests, but I knew how much time it would take someone like myself to get proficient at foiling. And so I was like, that looks incredible for me. I'm going to say no, only because I'm looking for I know I could surf better and deeper with the consistency that I'm still chasing. I think the consistency in surfing is the measure that most people don't talk about. And to me is the most important thing. And the most consistent I can be with my approach to any day, any board, any session, and be in control of that consistency is really what I'm aspiring to, because that then you can tap in and balance yourself in life. Like I can pop in at the beach for 40 minutes at the right time of the day with the right equipment, ride 6 waves and be back to work and be radically changed with the shortest amount of neglect to other things that I'm really interested in too, whether it be work or art, right? So therefore that's a creative balance, and therefore surfing's it's I don't, even if you wouldn't agree that's the creative act of surfing is creative, that the balance of its lifestyle is quite creative, you know?
Yeah, you've got to stay on top of your skills. Otherwise, you can't take those opportunities. Like if you've got the
Yeah,
opportunity to attend band practice once every month and you don't practice in between, you're not going to enjoy that rehearsal hour that much because your skills aren't sharp and
right,
you didn't sink in with the song.
right. I think the future of surfing is being able to be accurate in challenging conditions. I'll say it again, accuracy in challenging conditions. I've summed it up that succinctly because I've thought about this so much, but I think as surfing gets more crowded and popular, the difficult waves are going to be the ones you get to enjoy either on your own or on the smallest or fewest people out, like the smallest crowd, right? But they're harder to surf. That's why no one wants to mess with them. But if you're able to tap into that and either stay polished or just have fun, and that's what you enjoy, I think it's really difficult to ride small, weak waves. But it's of huge value if you want to stay tuned for when good waves do come, or when you do get chance to be on a trip, or when you do get a day when it's too big for everyone else to paddle out. Like there's a repetition and a favor to trying to stay um, honed, but also that needs to be fun in and of itself. And I'm endlessly fascinated by these small uncrowded waves that I choose and get to ride on my own. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's better than fighting in a crowd, or if it really is of long term value, but it doesn't really matter. It's just interesting to me. So Yeah, I'd rather surf better waves, but also it's maybe not. Like when you really look back, like what is surfing? And you're like, it's the pursuit of excellence within oneself. It means nothing to anyone else. So like if you said it was if you sometimes I think of surfing as a puzzle. What's the next piece to put together within a performance on that wave, let alone waves within a session? You could build really difficult puzzles. That's quite a radical choice. So back to making things hard to get more out of it. Yeah, that's just an interesting part of life.
Yeah, imposing new challenges, it certainly elicits the flow state.
I like that you said flow state because as you said, imposing new challenges, I was like, I I I don't know that surfing and tricks need to be so that sounds kind of sporty to me. Like the tricks within surfing. It's like, well, yeah, there are maneuvers that seem unnecessary and they probably feel good and that's why you do them. But then there's efficiency in connecting energy parts of a wave that we put together as what we call a beautifully written wave that felt good to do. That's what I'm consistently talking about. And if that requires an air within that, that's great. But there, once we consider categories of technique and proficiency in a trick, I get a little lost. Can't do most of them, that's for sure. But that is a different thing. And I watched the whole thing. Oh, it was fantastic. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
the
a different thing at that point.
surfing. I think simple surfing is the best. You know.
Well, until you realize it is, it might not be for you, and that's why it's your own thing. Like it's it's your own fascination. Like, what are you really like? Those aerialists must be incredibly fascinated by putting their body at those potentially dangerous positions over and over. Like the like, imagine being injured and sitting out for that many months, that many times within a life that you're only 24 years deep in. I'm not sure I'm willing to risk that, and so you let some sections go. Right? It's just a different fascination and incredible ability and incredible amounts of refinement gone into consistently pulling off maneuvers like that, let alone in a shallow pool. Um, it's like, what are you fascinating? What are you fascinating with, and how do you unpack that best? Um, that's how you would approach a complex puzzle or a challenging art piece. It's just problem solving, right? Like, how I'm not sure which part of this next painting to layer, or and then you break through and you find and then you get a little more momentum, and then you get you get the wobblies, and then you lose confidence, and then you get these little breakthroughs, and then all of a sudden it's done, and you at best know when to stop, and that's good editing, and that's probably the hardest part. It's kind of like surfing too, and it's like, okay, it's time to end the session. And the waves are still pumping, you didn't have to be anywhere, but sometimes it's sit on the beach and watch the next four sets and just realize what you've been a part of. That's maybe a maturity that I'm starting to see, and it it um it doesn't add value to the session. It just helps resonate the memories that you've gleaned, and therefore maybe files them better and I don't know, maybe I'll get to dream out of or from them. So yeah,
Mm.
being really precious with those times.
Yeah. Do you think surfing becomes more of an art the older you get, or the better you get, or the more experienced you get?
100%. I think what one of the thoughts I had today was, if you think of surfing as an art, then it's like, well, there's some pretty bad art out there, mine included. At times, you make terrible decisions or distasteful selections on a wave or on a board color or in a wetsuit choice. Like it's still life. It's it's not 100% all the time. How boring would that be? And yet you see people's growth within their own surfing life, and that's why you don't want to judge. And these statements really need to be taken with huge amounts of salt, please. But you see people new to surfing that get fascinated deep enough, and then they want to learn so badly that they almost like get in their own way. And then others just naturally acquire these skills and they're quite proficient, and you realize they're probably good at a lot of things they try. You know those people, right?
Hmm.
They're just really quick learners, or they take in feedback or pinpoints. And now with the amount of coaching available and those kinds of opportunities, you can learn, you can shortcut the learning really quickly. And yet still, if surfing is an art, then your creative body of work is really your surfing life, your surfing lifestyle, the way you understand what surfing is to you and how you responsibly cultivate that relationship with surfing, which means with surfing and everybody else in your life too. There's other relationships, always complex, right? Um, I think you'll see people surfing change over time, and yeah, things go in and out of style and in and out of fashion, but you creatively get more astute to what this thing means to you and how to balance it. I think if you're only fascinated by very, very good waves, there'll be a time when surfing just gets so frustrated and you hang it up. I can think of so many people that have done that, and that's interesting. It's not how I am, and I'm kind of grateful for that because I kind of not sure what I'd switch it out for. So that's their path to discover. But right now, I'm fascinated by how it is and how I'm approaching it daily now.
I guess surfing is like if you think of it, let's take music as an art form. If you're if you first start learning the guitar,
Hmm.
are you practicing art?
No, you practice so that one day you can play, and that practice, if possible, should be fun because it keeps you interested. And if you're interested for long enough, one day you might be able to play a song and sound like you would like it to sound. So when you learn to surf, you're practicing surfing. And one day you might get a really nice wave come to you and you will blow your mind. The feeling of how that felt and how ridiculously happy you feel for the next day, week, month, year. I don't know. My point is you walk away with that sensational change, the stoke, right? So I do think there are times when you practice surfing and there are times when you perform surfing. And they're usually premeditated. And ever so often there's a overlap within it. There are days when I'm on the beach training, and I use those words. I'm either going to therapy or I'm going to training. And I'm surfing all by myself, meaning I know the kinds of things I'm working on. Like riding very difficult boards is a hard pill to swallow, except I know what I'm looking for. And so that would be training. That would be like exercising one's ability, refining your ability, highlighting your pain points. So there are times when I practice surfing
Like a
so
musician
that
learning a new scale.
100%. And therefore, I'm staying tuned, I'm staying activated, I'm staying interested. And not all of it is fun. And yet I know I'm on the larger overarching narrative. This is going to return dividends because on the right section, I know my owns are going to be in the right place. And with these fins on this rail, this feeling is what I'm not chasing, but when it comes, I'm going to be so grateful for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
that
that. Yeah, it's your intention, isn't it? If you're practicing or you're learning how to do something, but you're doing it because, like, think of music. If you're practicing the guitar, you're doing it because you want to be good at the guitar as an artist,
mhm.
right? Not as a
Yeah,
professional or a sportsman or whatever.
right. It's such a creative outlet. Like it's nauseating when you see somebody surfing really well and you can't surf as well as them, right? And you're like, wow, that must feel amazing. And yet to them, it feels okay because they until they're pushing themselves, that feeling, and that's why I don't like the thing of tricks. Like it's not like until they land the new trick, they probably won't feel happy. It's if you're not in tune, no matter how well you're surfing, you know that you're missing out on what you could have done or want to do, right? So your vision for how to surf that wave with flow and seamless transitions and reading the wave properly should be always growing. And when you do from time to time get it right, it's undeniable. That's what keeps you coming back. So I think looking at other people surfing and imposing what you're able to do or can't do, you got to be careful for that. You want to push yourself constantly, and that's a practice. I mean, it's like people learning to surf shouldn't ride good waves, which is a terrible statement, but it kind of could hold up, like there would be, if you went to lowers and only really proficient surfers surfed out there, it would be an entirely different experience. Now you wouldn't want to put a gate on the at the sea. Like you don't want to, gatekeep the place. However, if you work on your surfing well enough and you get proficient enough, when you do get to surf a good wave, you're not going to be in the way. You're going to be in the right part of the wave, doing the right thing, and the memory is going to be really rich. So, yeah, I'm still trying. I'm trying to learn to surf still, which is incredibly fun.
Yeah. Yeah, the guitarist sits alone in the bedroom doing a lot of practice. They don't practice on stage.
Please now, get off the stage. Go and learn your stuff. It's not the time or the place.
Yeah, you might as well go down to the closeout beach and just catch whitewater after whitewater and practice your timing.
There's reps, exactly. There's reps to be had with nobody around, and if you do speak to musicians long enough, there is this relationship with that practice. It's still really fun. And so, if you think of surfing as a sport, then you would train for sport, and yet why you would think it is a sport, because it's like people will switch it out for another sporty activity. It's like, well, I'm not running at the moment, but I've been surfing a lot. I haven't been going to the gym. So you're switching it up for a cardiovascular, endorphin releasing kind of activity, and that's all true. But then you also need to switch it out for, well, that means you're working on your paddle technique when you're surfing, right? And how the breathing exercise is going, and the wave key program, which module, like there's parts of the responsibility to it being a practice that is pretty obvious if you want to call it a sport, and yet even more logical if you're creating art, because you work on how things work and then you manipulate them or be able to play with them out of your pantry of options.
Yeah, you separate practice and play. You're still an artist.
They coexist. There are times when I'll approach the sea and I'm certainly putting my hand up. Yes, this is a practicing session. I'm going to practice surfing. And yet there's still moments within which good surfing is happening and I have the most amazing joy. So there's a performance that means nothing to anyone except myself. That's what surfing is. I think that's art. But they do overlap by the strangest ways, but they are, I just don't like that hard line between, like the binary separation between practice and then performance. It's more,
the lines are blurred.
As you, I'm trying to think the best way to, this is one of the things I was thinking about, but I grew up studying the Bible a lot. And there's a verse in the Bible that, and a lot of it still doesn't make sense, that's for sure. And most of it's like skewed in a narrative it's silly. Anyway, there's incredible wisdom there that I do look for, and the wisdom rings true, and therefore I like it. Anyway, there's a verse that says, go into all the world and share the gospel. And that gets like, oh, you should do it this way. But the verse actually says, as you go into the world. And so what I was thinking about was like, is surfing who you are or what you do, but it's the way you do it. The way you go about life as a surfer. You do not drive down PCH without looking at the waves once you've started surfing. It changes who you are. So as you go about surfing, the way you conduct yourself as this artist, if it's art, is therein, I think, is what the message was. That if those were the words of Jesus, they make total sense because that seems to be true. You know, you can carry that with you. It's the way you go, as you go. Anyway, that was the best way I could understand it within my own self because I've wrestled with that thing before, and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense with the art and the sport thing.
So is
For whatever is it worth.
surfing is gospel?
No, surfing is art, and if art has truth within it to you, then it will be true somewhere else too. Like, so you can't force a narrative on somebody else. But if I talk about these things in surfing and you haven't felt them within yourself, then why does it matter? But if you have, then we resonate on a similar thing. And I'm not trying to be right, but if that makes a difference to how you see or understand something, that could be really joyous within your own life. Like this has got nothing to do with you or I. It's got to do with whoever's listening and they're surfing, right? Like I constantly have to remind myself, and it just happens naturally, really, but to get out of the what's going on and that it's going on. Like you remove yourself from this because like otherwise surfing is just selfish again. But it feels something that you then bring back to the rest of life with you.
Yeah, I agree.
It's quite simple, and yet it's really difficult to put words to. And yeah, I'm rambling on and on and on, but I do want to be careful because the words matter. You know, like I think not trying to bring meaning to surfing, but just acknowledging that it has great meaning is enough for me. And it's taken years to get to a place being so comfortable to say that. And I think I didn't grow up in a surfing family. They have no idea about what this whole thing's about. It's pretty hilarious. And now having a young family and my son surfs and we're enjoying sessions together. It's such a joy. But they all know how much surfing means to me. And yet they don't understand that at the depth, nor will they ever. And that's okay.
Well, let's say you have Kelly Slater and Messi, the great footballer Messi.
Sure.
Both are artists, I would say. I would say Messi is an artist within the sport of football.
Mm.
And I think that he would say that football is a bit more than a sport for him personally.
Of course.
Like his relationship with the field and the ball and the goal and the opposition, etc. He would probably describe it similar to the way you and I might talk about surfing. His love
Right.
of the great game, and then when you watch him play, the ball is on a string and he's doing art. So I think that for surfers, surfing is your thing, but then other people, whether it's football or cross stitch or whatever it is, I think almost any pursuit can be an art if it's given the permission, if you give yourself permission for it to be an art and it means that much to you. So the best,
Right.
the people that are at the top of their field that do whatever it is beautifully, you could say it's an art for them, whether that's a sport like football or tennis, or whether that's painting or music.
Well, there's a mastery there for sure. Yeah, I agree. If I mean, if something's fascinating enough, you'll go deep within it, and within depth, there's incredible beauty. You know, Messi and Kelly have complex lives, and yet they've seen something deeper than most other humans would ever see in that space. But that even at the end of it, it only means anything to them, and then we can glean and look and listen from it. But at the end of the day, you come back to your own life and your own surfing and your own soccer ball, and who are we? So there's this narrative of like, can I create? But yet I'm also in creation. It gets as simple as that, you know, like you're part of something and yet it's still you and yours. And then you get to share within that. Like, I think the gift that Kelly's given us has been incredible. His contribution to surfing beyond many other things is very inspirational. And the way he carried that torch, I'm sure he's looked back with regret on some things, but for the most part, like he's incredible ambassador. You know, I've heard him speak at many things about those kinds of things of how much surfing's giving him and how much he wants to give back. And it just makes sense. Um, I was watching this art show. Gosh, it must have been 16, 17 years ago. It was a long time ago. And it was an art competition with these artists that they would give them. It was kind of like a cooking show. You'd have briefs, and then someone got eliminated. Someone got eliminated, and throughout the weeks, and then you'd land up with 4 finalists, and they had a commission, and they did this thing, and they chose the best artist. And once again, it's like, man, it kind of got cringe because you had to make it competitive to make it meaningful. Anyway, similar to what we're talking about. But I remember there was this one artist, I really liked his work, and he didn't win, but what he did in his final was, it was really, it wasn't clever. It was just well thought out, and it was moving. I still remember it. And one of the judges got up. I wish I'd remembered their name. I wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it on the bottom of my computer. And it said, "Good art isn't what it looks like. It's how it makes you feel." And he didn't win, and that was their condolence to him, like, because you could tell he should have won maybe, and yet the scores showed that he didn't. But that's what they said. They said, "Good art isn't what it looks like, but how it makes you feel." And it was very helpful for me at the time, creating, I've always been creating, but like formally showing up and getting commissioned or paid to create something, whether it's a surfboard or a painting, photograph, film. And so therefore, understanding that was very helpful. And then when you think of the conversation of surfing being so much of a feeling, and that's okay, there's a really beautiful overlap there. You know, it's not what it looks like, it's how it makes you feel. You know, when it feels like you're ripping and you're not, and then you learn to surf better and you realize that you're inefficient, and now you can get to more places with more agility and ability, and it flows more proficient. Like, that's why we want to get better at surfing. But at the end of the day, as long as you're not in anyone's way, if it feels good, that's kind of a good thing, you know, and that's enough. So, you know, I had those thoughts today, thinking back about art and how it feels to create, and there was an overlap there for sure. And I don't know what it feels like to be a very proficient sports person, and that would be interesting to, because I don't know what that's like. So I don't have a good point of view on that. So I'm really just talking as an art point of view. I'm realizing I've played sports, but I've never been that good at something or played it for this many years, you know?
Well, how it makes you feel. Yeah, as a surfer, nothing feels better than surfing. And if you're
Surfer.
and if you have the perspective that surfing is an art and you're expressing yourself creatively, surfing is an art, especially for you. And then you take someone like, I mean, the film Kelly Slater Black and White is a beautiful piece of performance art, not
Right.
not just from Kelly himself, but the filmmakers as well. But
Yeah.
obviously, the focus is Kelly's surfing, which is performance art. And how does that make us feel when we watch it? Like, we almost get, oh, wow, I can imagine what that might feel like. I want to go surfing now.
Right.
So, and then Messi playing in front of 50,000 people, he's performing. There is an element of performance art the way he would feel, right? You know, obviously he would love kicking a ball around by himself, but to score a goal in front of 50,000 people that are cheering at him, there's a certain, a different feeling, not just for him, but his supporters as well. So they would get to feel some of what, oh, wow, they can imagine if they play football as well as sitting there watching it, they can imagine what that must feel like to score a goal that beautiful in the heat of the moment. And
Right.
so therefore a sports athlete could also be a performance artist in that scenario as well.
I mean, you see people, like, you stand at pipe and watch somebody score a 10. I've done it the last 2 years. It's pretty incredible. Like watching Barron getting blown out of that wave and the clock can't, like, there's an energy within that. And once again, like, that becomes bigger than what it was. So therefore, like, this whole thing is you part of creation. He was creating within create. I can't think of better ways to try and understand it within myself, and even not trying to put words there to meaning an end, but yeah, he was creating within that creation, and the creation was this, man, that amount of people on that beach with that many people watching online, and it was such an energy. It's really cool, and those little moments live on, and it's a beautiful thing. That was art created for sure. That's a museum time, museum piece, a little capsule.
Mm. Yeah, art is so, gosh. Yeah, I mean, performance art. And you think it's, when stand-up comedians often, when they talk about themselves, they are performing artists,
Oh yeah,
and they're often very self-aware, and they'll even say, "Oh, I love being on stage. I love being the center of attention. Please look at me. Please laugh at my silly dick jokes or whatever it is." They're very aware that they love the performance aspect of it and
right.
being the center of attention. And whether someone like Kelly Slater would be willing enough to admit it, I think he gets off on being the center of attention and a performing artist. And I think a lot of
He's
athletes
still
are that. However, if he's to surf by himself on some boat trip when everyone else is having coffee, he'd get maybe more out of that, or just as much. But that's more for himself. It's still art. I think surfing is many different forms of art.
I mean, it's a yes and, right? Like you're still a human. Like someone stroking your ego at that level would, of course you're going to tap in. But I often think of it this way: like if all the surfboards went away tomorrow, would I still show up and go for a body surf? And it's an absolutely yes. So like if you strip things down to like, are you really still interested in this? If all the competition goes away, would those surfers still surf? Pretty sure most of them would, right? So therefore they are surfers. Are they winning surfers? Well, that comes and goes. But I like to think of it as simply as that. Like without a board, you're still enjoying the waves or the sea or just a body of water. And therefore it kind of takes the nuance of all those other things. Of course they matter and they feel good or whatever, but I do like the concept of surfing in the simplest form.
Mm. Well, I mean, in that analogy there of body surfing, you're still surfing, and you're connecting with something bigger than yourself,
Exactly.
and something that
Like
has a long history behind it too, playing in the ocean.
it's almost like listening to our conversation now and trying to like really not see if I'm saying the right thing, which just crawling for words here, but it's almost like a surfing competition really should be showcasing that. It should be more of a waterman appreciation thing. Like who's the best body surfer, aerialist, tube rider, and point surfer. And I could tell you exactly who I think would win those, like the actual waterman. And you're like, oh, well, this isn't what we're doing. This is what we're doing. It's all fun, man. It's all good. But I do respect the creativity or the art life approach, or the surfing life, art life, surfing life, transpose those, the artistic creation or expression of someone being proficient from body surf, swim to tube ride. I could name my two favorites, and it's that is incredibly deep to me. Like, wow, the things they must have felt and seen, and the way they carry themselves through life with those memories and responsibilities is that's pretty high level, man. That's a life. That's an interesting world of life. In my opinion, I'm interested.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the connection to the ocean, and then from a performance perspective, you're connecting with the audience as well.
You're right. Yeah.
So the connection is a
It's
through line.
yeah. I think because you're present, like you start learning up in yogi terms, yeah, pretty quick. It's like yeah, you're in it. You're really feeling it. And we're like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, touche. Hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Mm. And
But
then
yeah, back to the listeners. Yeah, when I keep thinking about these people, I can't believe they're still listening. I think there's three of them. I don't know. But shout out to like, I don't want to like premeditate surfing, but set yourself these little challenges and go play in the sea with this I'm still learning mentality. It's quite liberating. Um, I'm practicing surfing. If you say it out loud, there's actually some science behind, I forget exactly how they quote it, but like um, it interrupts the conversation in your head. So Donald, I'm going to practice surfing right now. And you address yourself in first person, and it's quite disruptive, but do it with your surfing. Like, stop playing and messing with it that much, that responsibly. Oh man, it just gets more interesting. And interesting is the word I choose because it doesn't get deeper. It's already deep. It's just looking into it for long enough that is the difference, maybe.
Mm. I like to say to myself, I'm going to play surfing because I like the music analogy. Or so you're going to play music, and it brings an
I've had a
element of.
conversation with that exact concept. Yeah, the act of play and that we don't use it for surfing. I've had this with a friend just a month ago. Like, yeah, because he was writing Substack articles on play, the concept of play and how it's like it really well written pieces. James, lovely young man, and I was like, man, it's interesting how we don't switch that out for surfing. We don't come play surfing. We come and maybe practice surfing or just perform surfing or just do surfing, but play. And we riffed on it. We were in the water, which it was not a great place to chat, but we took the conversation on land. And yeah, I like that, to play surfing.
Ironically, the best surfers in the world, they learnt from an early age, which is when it was pure play. Kids just playing with the whitewater and then on
Yeah.
bodyboards and then trying to surf dad's
Mm.
surfboard. They're playing with it. I'm watching my kids learning surfing now, and they don't want to surf like anyone. They just love catching waves and just playing.
Well, I agree. And I think that's really interesting. But I do think now in 40 years, we're going to be able to have data and have to look back and see people that started surfing late and die surfing after staying true to it, maybe being exposed to it later, what that kind of relationship will be later. Like if you started playing, would it on an average forecast that it will end this way? Or if you arrive to it late, I was only 15 years old when I started surfing, which is quite a late blooming, right? Um, but then there are many examples of pros that started that late too. I believe Dane Reynolds
Oh,
started
really? Oh, I
surfing
didn't
this
know
weekend.
that.
And I think so.
Wingnut started at 17, but he body surfed since he was 5.
Maybe a better grounding, to be honest. But there are people that start later, and it is interesting. I do like that concept of play, but I don't think and that's what's cool about surfing. There's not one way.
Mm.
It's your way because it's your surfing, like it's your thing. Yeah, yeah.
Food for thought. Yeah, well, actually, in the episode with Aaron James, we talk about that a lot, about the play, and stuff. Really interesting. He had some really interesting thoughts on that. That's episode 111 for listeners. But yeah, I think your relationship with surfing does, not everyone, but a lot of us, it evolves and so it becomes more playful the
Well, that
older
would
you
make
get.
sense. Yeah, that would make sense if you look at the rest of life. You see some people retire out of what they formerly did as a career and start picking up new interests or whatever it is. Like life moves on, and so do you. And therefore, as you change and your understandings and your vault of memories come with you, we are who we are when we've been fused and formed from the goods and bads that have happened to us. So like those things, you're not in control of everything, and yet to be able to approach something and tap into it with this practiced years of appreciation, I really like that. Because you don't know what's coming, and I'm grateful for every day I do get to surf. Yeah, I really am. I think that every day that goes by, the gratitude deepens, like what this is. Yeah, for
Mm.
me, it's been lately just sitting on the beach and watching a few waves, and it's like, okay, well, maybe you don't have the luxury of time to no. It's like if you have 45 minutes to surf, we'll sit on the beach for 5 of those and watch waves. It's a good investment, I found, and this is what I've found. So try it on for yourself and see if that fits. But I think it's coming out of this gratefulness, this generosity towards what it is, and just even removing yourself from it and like letting those waves go unwritten. This was a beach nobody was at the last 2 days. I was surfing all by myself, and it was like just sat and watched a few waves, and it was meditative in a way.
Mm.
Meditative.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been fun. cost nothing, and it's changed everything. Like that was just the last 2 days. I had no idea we were having this conversation. Like there it was. I was like, that was interesting. I'm just gonna watch. I'm gonna wait for the next set. Now it was just so interesting. It was like mindset them, and what it did, it was just blossomed this gratefulness within me. I was really, it was quite surprising. I'd say that, and I'm even more grateful for that.
Hmm. Yeah, we used to do that a lot more when we were young, in between surfs, often just watching waves when we had
Mm.
time.
It's almost like watching surf competitions for me. It's like just watching somebody else ride a wave is, it's like, it's just interesting enough. I mean, you can sit and watch that all day if you had the luxury of it, but it's like eventually you just want to go surfing and driving yourself nuts. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Or
I
maybe
guess that's what,
you get to Phil Edwards' age and it's maybe just dreaming about it's enough.
gosh, it was such a interesting conversation, and yet he was so poignant and direct. I was like, oh, I'm really glad I asked him. And yeah, it didn't offend him at all. I took a chance, but yeah, what a neat man.
Yeah.
Gosh, it was so cool. Talking about boats and holes and designs. It was really, really neat. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I can't believe he hasn't been interviewed. I mean, like,
Oh, has he not?
I show me an interview. I mean, like, he was notorious for like not really speaking about surfing and this. Like, he lives down the street. I now that I know what he looks like, I see him. But yeah, I'm not sure if he's just not approachable, if nobody's taken the time. I'm not sure, but
I'm pretty
it
sure
would
that
be a
I'm pretty sure that either
it would be a
David or
loss.
Scott have approached him. I'm sure I remember them talking about it.
I wouldn't be surprised that he turned it down, but it would be a
Mm.
shame for him not to have his. Yeah, not everyone wants to do that, and that's fine. It's his own thing,
Yeah,
and
no,
it's like
understandable.
your yeah, your surfing's your own thing too. It's like it almost feels weird imposing our thoughts and what this is to others, and that's why I'm like constantly trying to think about how people are listening to this, and it's like just shut us up and think about it for yourself, like and take ownership on those things and share them accordingly. But yeah, it's kind of there's a cringe factor, and yet there's also this gratefulness to be able to talk about these things, let alone to live the life looking at them for this long. Like that's the gift, really. So yeah, I am grateful for that.
Oh, and I think it's awesome. People want to hear different perspectives, especially from those of us who are in the industry who have had the luxury to do it more than them and immerse ourselves a little bit more. Any little nuggets we can give them might help them in their weekend warrior journey and to get more out of life and stick with it and yeah, become better surfers and more focused or more present artists.
I like that thing, a more present artist, because I practice art too. Like I do a lot of art, but there's yeah, I could walk in right now and show you the doodles we drew yesterday, and I've been trying to show my kids. Like I set them little assignments. I'm like, oh, you need to write a thank you card for so and so, and all right, the, the, all you have to do is spend 5 minutes to do this. If you want to spend longer, that's but you set these little parameters. But it's like look at this art piece you did. So you were commissioned to do something. So I have to do the same for myself. It's like, all right, sit down and draw this.
Mm,
And it's helped me, so therefore it's helped my surfing. So
that's a,
it's hand in hand.
that's an interesting point and analogy because if you sit down and you spend 1 minute creating a thank you note, the sentiment would be appreciated, I'm sure. But if you were to sit down and spend 5 minutes carefully with care and intention for that thank you note, maybe the words are the same, but the handwriting is more neat and it looks prettier. The other person will see that and they'll actually experience more gratefulness for the time that you took, especially if you drew a little drawing and or so I think, and then that would be the difference between a thank you note and a really artful thank you note is the care taken in the presentation and the thought behind it, perhaps.
Mm, now we get into philosophical territory because then you could start pandering to be wanted, liked, or accepted. So if you spend 3 hours making that note, oh, now there's incredible care. Oh, they must be really grateful. All very insecure. So you land up in a. So now you can see how that could be risky,
Mm,
right? So let's go back. As an artist, hey, could you sit down and make a thank you note? If you want to spend longer, that's fine. Now you're creating till you feel you've expressed yourself. That is the biggest gift and most accurate thanks you could give. And if the person didn't see the care that the same lettering could have taken somebody else longer, that doesn't matter. The heart in which you presented it was, now it's out of your hands. The way they received it, if you were pure and true, that's undefendable. It's not undeniable. They might not like it. And that's also not the point. But the fact that you just poured yourself creatively out, you were the meter and measure of which brush strokes to do, which lettering to choose, when to stop, if to stop. That was the act of thank you. And as an artist, that's the act of, like, how much is this piece selling for? Like, pricing can get kind of sticky, but if you're like, I really don't care what it costs. I'm just so grateful that I was the vessel through which this came. So this is what landed up being, right? That's where you want to be every time. And it's like, man, I wish I'd charged more for this. I love this piece. It's the best thing you could feel. But you've quoted and you stick by your word, right? But then you're like, oh, I got to be part of this. And then it's gone. And every time you think back on that piece, there's an energy that bubbles up. There was a responsibility with just showing up and doing the work and then moving on. Show up, ride those waves, and come back the next day, ride the next ones. Like, it's a similar. So that got maybe too much, but I do think you can start to want to be liked or accepted.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, you want to do it. You create the thank you note in this analogy. You want to be proud of it, and that's probably enough. If you obsess over it and you take 5 hours to do it and it's for someone you don't know that well, it would come across as creepy. Or if you just scribbled it quickly, it would come across as shallow. So there's that sort of middle ground.
If you like it, that's good art. Actually, this is a great segue to introduce Rick Rubin's work. And I'm careful to recommend books, even like quoting the Bible was off brand for me, meaning like things have to be taken within context. But my point is, I read Rick Rubin's book. It's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being, is the subtitle, I believe.
Yes.
And that book was really, really helpful for me because he was putting words to things that I'd thought but hadn't ever either heard expressed or didn't know to be true for someone else because they were kind of within your own head. But that's his whole thing, man. Like, read the book, really. If this sounds interesting to you, I'd highly recommend it. But he was saying, like, art to be liked or enjoyed is commerce. Like, art that you like is art. If other people don't like, that's commercial at that point. So in the thank you, back to the thank you note, make the thank you note and we'll send it when you like it, once you're done. So that's, as an artist, you need to learn to stop when you like it, because you can overcook a painting too, or underdeliver and be lazy. So there's that realm, and I think Rick put the best words to that, saying like, "Hey, if you do things so that people like you or it, that's not the point here. It's if you like it, that's why you made it." And that goes to like, that's a nice little tie into our surf talk too. It's like, did you like that wave? Great. Could you have done better? That's on your, like, could you explain where you felt you could work on your technique or where you were a little more, could be more efficient in that ride? Great. If you can't, well, cool. As long as you weren't in the way. Right. And see, it's like you become the meter and measure of what's going on within you, around you, and through you. Definitely through you.
Yes, that is a great point. Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like that. If you're happy with the way that you surf, you've won.
100%. I mean, I think you could argue, oh, well, then eventually you'll get bored. And that's why I come back to, well, if you're fascinated with surfing, you'll consistently be interested. I get nervous with somebody being passionate about surfing, say, 'cause, yeah, you'll probably, we'll move on to other things. But there's people I've met. I think you're one of them, and it's not a judgment of who's in or who's out, but there are people who are endlessly interested with what surfing is and the depths within it, and that's great. And if you aren't, that's fine too.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think that, like myself, I'm content with the way I surf at the moment. However, I still want to get better in terms of like, oh, the waves are really small today. I'm content with the way I surf, but it's going to be challenging of me to surf this board and those waves. So in some ways, I have to get better, kind of thing. There's still challenge. There's still challenge there. I'm not content to the point where it's boring. But
Interesting.
but I don't care what other people think. I don't care whether I do a cutback or not. Or whereas in the past I was, a bit more judgmental of myself, I think. But that doesn't stop challenge and progression in other ways.
Try and make surfing harder for yourself as a challenge, like riding the skinny boards or whatever it is, and just see if it becomes more interesting or you learn something about yourself. That's maybe the biggest point I'm not trying to make, but have found to be true lately. And it brought out energies that I didn't even know were within me, and frustrations too that I didn't know how to deal with, and parts of self-worth that I didn't know were tied up within who I thought I was as a surfer. And I'm not comfortable with how well I'm surfing right now. And I'm surfing the best I've ever surfed in my life. And I'm guaranteed convinced about that. So that's kind of cool. So there's this like frustration with my progression. And yet I'm progressed to a point that I'm surfing more accurately, consistently than I ever have. This is why I know it's better. But yet I'm still like, it's an endless, I don't think I'll ever arrive. There's no end point in this, which is okay. It's not like when you said you've won. I think that's really true for a lot of people, but for the carrot to keep moving is also really, really beautiful too. Because then one day you're done, and then all of this was great.
Oh yeah, that will change when my kids get a bit older and they can start surfing better and more challenging waves. That's going to change. I'll be like, oh man, I need to up my skills. I need to up my fitness to keep up with them and to enjoy these style of waves that they can surf and I want to surf with them. So, but at the moment, it's just the types of waves that I get access to and the times that I get to go surfing. I'm just, yeah. But there, like I said, it's not to say there isn't challenges because there's always a challenge there.
I like Tom Carroll is always talking about riding tiny waves in Sydney, training for big sessions. And I've always just cherished him. I've heard him say it on a few occasions, but yeah, like he'd go and surf small, windy, I think North Sydney or something. And and you're like, yeah, he was challenging himself, putting the training together. Next stop, Waimea, wherever it was. It's pretty funny. I love it. And you're like, yeah, there's endless reps to be enjoyed and practiced and things from which to glean.
Yeah, well, it's because the way that you get power out of a small wave is by having an eye for details.
And that's the thing is that a lot of those waves will be unridden. So there's endless eye for practice
Yep.
and enjoyment.
And the way that you make it down a massive wave that's windy, you have to have an eye for the details. You have to pick that line of smoothness that'll allow your rail to cut through the madness of that massive wave. So I remember him talking about that. That's the through line between small and big waves is that eye for detail. Where's that rail going? I like to use the analogy of the mountain biker flying down a hill. If the track's 2 meters wide, you can get down the hill in a number of ways, but the fastest way down is you want to know exactly where the center of your tire is going at every moment. So you focus in on that, on those little details, the little bumps and grooves within the track. And the same is true for surfing too. If you can look at the details of where that rail is going to go, it's another art in itself.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to go.
Yes. No, thank you, Donald. I appreciate that. Let the folks know your website and Instagram handle.
I think everything is on Brink Surf.
Brinksurf.com. I'll have links in the show notes and I'll do an intro anyway. So
It's difficult. It's like I hand make all boards start to finish, and I love doing it. I really do. But like I don't make that many surfboards, so it's all custom. And people get in touch with me, and we have these long conversations and make the right board for the right person is the goal. It really is. But more than anything, if this can just be a way to give back to surfing, and I really appreciate the work that you've done and the tireless hours and episodes you put out and the consistency in that within your own life that's changed so much. It's an honor to be in conversation with you about these things and to share to other people. Like, so it's not on deaf ears, this, and thank you for calling and having these chats over these years, Michael.
Yeah, no, it's been great. We should do it again for sure.
Yeah, look forward to it. All
right, man.
Well, good to chat.
You too. Sweet. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
See ya. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. That was Donald Brink. You can check out his surfboards, maybe get a custom one from him, and of course his artwork at brinksurf.com. That's BRINK surf.com. And I would love to hear your thoughts, listeners. Do you think surfing is an art or a sport? Send me an email, make a comment on Instagram. We've got Devin Howard coming up soon. He's going to weigh in on this question. But until next time, go to surfmastery.com and keep surfing.